or if I just want to quickly edit multiple images. Now, what I love about this technique is it's fast and easy, and it retains the texture of the skin, so it looks super natural. Now, this is not a high-end retouching technique, so I don't recommend this for covers or prints or your commercial jobs. I use it to retouch proofs before I send them to clients. And so you might be wondering, why would I bother retouching proofs? Well, when I shoot headshots, the more images I can sell, the more money I make. Okay, so what I've learned over the last 20 or 30 years is that most clients are not able to visualize how good they'll look after an image is edited. So they'll see the image in front of them and judge it based on what they see. So I've found it's a really good idea, and it does increase sales when I do a quick edit like this and just quickly remove any little blemishes, even out the skin tone, and just make those images look next level. So let's say I've got 10 images that I'm sending out to the client. I'm going to spend 2 to 3 minutes per image. So let's just say 30 minutes of my time is a really good investment, because that can translate to an extra 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 image sales. So it's definitely worth the effort. So let's have a look at how this is done. So I've got my image opened in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is duplicate the background layer. So to do that, the shortcut is Command J. All right, so I've got a new duplicate layer. Now I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and come down to High Pass. Click on that. You'll get a little dialog box that comes in. Now, you can see if I adjust my radius, it's going to sharpen wider areas, and you can see that you get that ghosting. Now, you don't want that. What you want is to keep the radius to a minimum. Now, it's going to depend on the file size of the camera that you're using. So if you've got a camera with slightly larger file sizes, you might want to go a little bit more than a radius of 3. You might want to go to a radius of 3.5 or 4. What you want to look for is that you've got all the fine details visible. So I can see the texture of the skin, I can see the eyelashes, eyebrows, and the hair, and some detail in the lips and there in the upper lip as well. That's what I want. So for my camera, and this was shot on the 5D4, a radius of 3 is plenty, or I think this might have been the 1DX, but anyway, the file size that I'm using, a radius of 3 is plenty. So once I've got the radius selected, I hit OK. And then I want to come up to my blend mode and change the blend mode from normal to overlay. Okay, so now effectively what I've got is a sharpened image. Okay, now the next stage, this is where the magic happens. What I'm going to do is, with my background layer selected, and what I might do is I will just rename this layer as sharpen. All right, and now I've got my background layer selected, and I'm going to come down to this little icon here, the little plus rectangle with a plus in it. That's a new empty layer. If I click on that, I now have an empty layer between my background layer and my sharpen layer. Okay, now follow along. Little bit confusing here. I want you to now select the sharpen layer, and you can see that when I've got my mouse or pen tool hovering over that layer, it's a hand. Okay, what I want you to do is hover that hand between the two layers. So I've got just over that line there between the two layers, and then holding down the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a Windows, if I click on that, the hand changes to an arrow that's pointing down. See that? So when I've got that, if I click on that, what that will do is you'll see that arrow points down to the empty layer. So basically what I've done is I've clipped this sharpened layer to the empty layer, which I'm going to rename the brush layer. All right, now you don't really need to worry about what's going on. What's important is that what happens is, because I've got this sharpened layer above and I've got this new empty layer below, I can now brush over this area and I'm going to maintain the texture of the skin while being able to just adjust the colors and get rid of some of the little blemishes and sort of minimize some of the pores and just clean up the skin a little bit. So with the brush layer selected, select the brush tool, blend mode, normal. You want to make sure that the brush is 0 hardness. Blend mode is normal. Your opacity is 100%. And the flow, we bring it all the way down to 10%. Okay. Now, I'll just reset that. What I'm going to do now is like I'm airbrushing the skin basically, but because I've got this sharpened layer over the top, when I airbrush, it's going to keep the texture. So I'm just going to come in a bit closer so that you can see what's going on. And I'm going to start with the nose area here. So you see how we've got that little highlight running down the middle of the nose. I'm just going to clean that up as a start. So what I'm going to do is hover my brush over a clean area of skin. So there is a good bit of skin right here where my brush is hovered. And then if I hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a Windows, I want you to watch this little foreground swatch here. You'll see that when I hover over that area, I've got the circle to say that it's the brush tool. When I select the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a Windows, and click on that, it changes to the color picker. All right, and when I click on that, I'm telling Photoshop, I just want you to sample this little area of skin here, and that's what it's done there. So now my foreground color is the same color as the skin, and now I can just brush over those areas. So what I'm doing is I've selected this color of skin here, and it's just like I'm brushing makeup over this area. And so what I like to do is, as I'm moving down, I just like to continue selecting the colors so that they match. Now notice how that when I brush over, it's changing the color, but it retains the texture, which is what's really cool about this technique. So now I can quickly go around and clean up the skin tone, and it's filling in the pores there, and it's going over where there's little blemishes and cleaning those up, and it retains the texture and it gives you a really natural look. Now I'm just going to zoom out because I'm going to make my brush a bit bigger, and I'll just select another area of skin, and I can do the forehead there. And if there's any little hairs and things like that, it retains the texture of the hairs. So I've got that clean area here, and you can see that it goes from highlight to shadow on the side of the face. So I'm careful that I change the color where it goes a little bit darker. All right, so, and you can see how quick this is as a way. So here we've got some blemishes on the skin. I'm filling those in. All right. And it's constantly resampling as I go, covering over those blemishes. But you can see the little fine hairs around the lips. It's keeping those. And we've got some little sort of pock marks here. Now you can see the upper lips here. There's a lot of texture here in the upper lips. So what I want to do is just minimize that, but I don't want to soften it. I want to keep the texture. So again, I've got this nice area of skin tone here. So I'll select it, Option on the Mac, Alt on the Windows, select that color, and I can come and just brush over that area. So you can see I've kept the texture, I've just minimized it just by brushing in those areas. And now I'll go to the other side, select this area here and brush it over the top lip. All right, so we're keeping the texture, but we're just smoothing out the skin tone. All right, and this little area here, we'll just get rid of that little highlight. Okay, now let's have a look. We've got before and after. And then what's really great about using layers in Photoshop is if you think I've been a little bit heavy-handed, I can come in, select my brush layer and just drop the opacity a little bit so that it looks even more natural. So there's no retouching, that's at 100%. And if I go around 70%, that looks pretty good. And you can leave it at that, or if you want to, and just like take another, say, minute out of your day, you can do a little bit of dodging and burning just to bring back the contrast to that image. So what I do is a new curves layer, select from the drop down menu, I select darker, and then come back to my layers. I'm changing my blend mode from normal to luminosity. Why am I changing it from normal to luminosity? Because I just want to affect the lightness or darkness of that area and not the color. And then what I'm going to do, Command I, is hide that layer. Okay, and now I can come in with my brush selected, blend mode normal, nice soft brush, opacity 100%. I'm going to bring the flow up to around 30%, and I can come in, nice big brush, and just brush over the eyebrows. I can do the side of the nose a little bit, and I'm just going over those areas like the cheeks. All right, so just see before and after. Maybe just give it a bit of the chin as well. And then if that looks like I've gone a little bit too far, I can just knock it back to 50%. So you can see before and after. So that just brings the contrast back. And then I can do exactly the same thing with the highlights, just to bring back some of the highlights. Now there is a detailed tutorial on burning and dodging based on using darker and lighter curves. So I'll link to that in the blog post for this tutorial. So next I'm going to go to lighter, so curves. From my default menu, just pick lighter, come back to my layers, change my blend mode to luminosity, and then I'm going to invert the layer or hide what I've just done, Command I. And then I come in with my brush tool, white as my foreground color, and I can now go over the brighter areas. So I've got the top of the nose, make my brush a bit bigger. I can bring back the highlight on the forehead, highlight on the chin, one on the cheek. You can do the top of the eyes there, and then I always like to just give the eyes a little bit of a sparkle as well. And then you can even follow any little highlights on the lips there. And then one thing I really like to do is the hair as well. So I can just bring in, just follow where there's highlights in the hair. It just makes the hair a little bit shinier as well. All right, so that's a little bit of extra, but if you could do that really quickly, and that's a quick edit for proofs. And you can see before and after. It maintains the texture, and it's a really quick and easy way to edit your proofs before you send them out to your clients.